So first of all, this IIIT, I have been coming here to talk about computational biology questions and others for a long time, and in some sense, IIIT and I feel that we are evolving together. Our interests are also evolving in the same way. And I wrote a small poem, which is, since we are all talking of creativity, I start with this Wordsworth's first few lines from Lucy poems. 3 years she grew in sun and shower, then the nature said, a lovelier flower on the earth was never sown. This child I to myself will take, she shall be mine, and I will make a lady of my own. On this I wrote, relating it to the current scenario, 15 years, because 2008 is when IIIT was established, I think, and I at that time left India. So 15 years we grew in sequence and structure. This is biological questions that I was working on. So 15 years we grew in sequence and structure, then nature said, a lovelier endeavor on earth has now been sown. This passion you in tandem should take, in a shared joy of intellectual journey to make, a beautiful symphony of your own. So this is kind of what probably a simple GPT can do. I have done a job which is equivalent to a very simple query to GPT. So I look at it, creative thinking or creative works in two different perspectives. One is the artist perspective taken apart. If we study creativity, we study it as a science or as a technology. What we have been talking mostly today was the technology of AI, how it can solve the problems of creativity, creative thinking. But I would say that science, the technology of creativity, that comes from AI and ML, but science comes from the works of psychologists and cognitive scientists who have been working for a long time on understanding intelligence and understanding creativity and the differences between them. And since as an educationist, I have got a chance to study educational psychology, and for a long time, psychologists, educationists have been interested in understanding the creativity of a child, intelligence of a child. And we were trying to find the best method to train a child's brain, the best methods to make the child creativity or nurture his creativity. The same way, AI is trying to replace that child by a machine. So the methods and the understanding of this the creativity and the intelligence that was developed by behavioral scientists or the cognitive scientists is very much applicable. And when I look at the comparisons, many of the theories of learning in machine learning, AI, are actually long time ago have been conceived by psychologists. Transfer of learning, transfer of training was studied several decades ago by psychologists. When how mental faculty, similarity theory, etc. So as an educationist, I had the chance to learn them early, and I can relate them to AI developments in the field of AI, and there is many more concepts there which have not been incorporated in the field yet. So I take that as an inspiration, and I quickly review what the theories of psychologists have helped to understand intelligence versus creativity, etc. So Spearman, the statistician, first studied intelligence as a two-factor theory, that can a person who is intelligent in one thing, he is also intelligent in everything else. So he collected the data from various types of intelligence questions and related their coefficient of correlation, and he found that probably there are two factors, specific intelligence and general intelligence. So this theory came, and then later on other works by Sternberg, he gave this triarchic theory of intelligence, and he identified three types of intelligence: analytical intelligence, creative intelligence, and practical intelligence. So they try to understand, the idea for them was to understand a child when he comes to a school, how to segregate them into sections, special abilities, give them different special attention, etc. So that was the idea, and that was very, very powerful work that they have done. So if we put it in, summarize what they have generally said, intelligence relies on problem solving and convergent thinking, and that's what most of our supervised machine learning, etc., is trying to do, or the AI models, algorithms of AI, the graph-based search, rational agents, etc. They are trying to solve problems. They are trying to develop a convergent thinking. There is a current state and there is a goal state. How can we best reach from the initial state to the goal state? That's what the current intelligence is trying to do. AI is trying to do. But this was understood by these psychologists, and then creativity explores two types of options. One is the novel use case creativity, that was also mentioned in the morning, and then the novel association creativity, that is you have studied two different subjects in two different contexts, how can you associate them together? So then this test, such similar to Turing test, this test was developed, Turing's test of creative thinking. And this test basically looks at the creativity in terms of the linguistic creativity particularly, the fluency, which means the total number of interpretable, meaningful and relevant ideas which a child can generate in response to a stimulus. You give him a situation, you ask him, okay, explain something about what are the different situations you can create out of it. So how fluently he can create and how meaningful are the ideas that the child is creating. So then the flexibility, the number of different categories of relative responses. So it is not that even if the large number of ideas are created, are they all the same ideas, or are there variants, are they very similar ideas? Is there sufficient diversity and sufficient, are they sufficiently enriched in terms of responses? So originality, somebody rightly said that there is nothing original ultimately, because whatever we consider original is ultimately an extension of our previous experience. But still, how far it is removed from exactly the way we have learned them, that is probably will define what we mean by originality here. So it is incremental originality or substantial originality, etc. And then elaboration, sometimes we may have very superficial ideas. We may have thought about Uran Khatola a very long time ago, but it does not mean we have created an aircraft. So the elaboration, the kind of practicality of the idea, can we really, do we just conceive a situation where we want to, or we also have the idea about how to go there. So this is how the Turing's test was developed, 1984, where this creative machine learning was not there. And then I come to the second aspect, how artists, the creative artists, particularly the literary artists, have worked on this idea of creative thinking, because their job is not only just to create arts, their job is also to train individuals, train their students and children to be creative and to produce high quality work. So they have also tried to understand how can they best teach. They cannot teach unless they understand what they are doing. So creativity is not just a blind process, a black box process for that purpose. How to convert that black box into an implementable strategy towards learning and implementing the creative activities. So I quickly have reviewed a few things that I came across. For example, James Peck defined for poetry 4 elements of poetry, which is it consists of rhythm, meter, diction, drama. A lot of people have worked on these different aspects and they have developed rules, etc., which some of them I'm presenting. So for example, this is the help that the tools are providing. This is, yeah. So in creative writing, we often talk about meter. So everything, what is poetic, what is not poetic? Poetry follows a certain meter. It follows prosody, and in Urdu, since I was introduced as for Urdu poetry also, in Urdu there is a lot of work done which is called ilme aruz. That is a line, the different lines of a poem have to follow a certain meter. They have to follow a particular rhythm. If the rhyme is matching and there is a particular sequence of rhymes, line number 1 should rhyme with the second and the fourth and the sixth. So based on these structures, there are different types of poems. They are called ghazals or they are called rubai based on what kind of rhymes they are following. And the length of the line cannot go, one line cannot be shorter than the other. So this kind of rules people have developed, and then this has led to different forms of poetry. For instance, I have listed out here 2 which I was familiar with from Urdu and from Japanese, because I spent a long time in Japan. So, and I'll explain why I mentioned Japanese. There's another reason. So ghazal, hamd, hijf, midah, marsiya, masnavi. So all these forms of poetry, they make, why they are different forms is because they enforce a particular structure of poetry. It is that, what are you writing? Are you writing just anything which sounds poetry to you? What is the structure you are following? Are you writing a blank verse, which will be free, just an idea? Or are you writing a structured poem, a 4-line poem of rubai, where the line 1, 2, 3, 4 should follow a particular, 1, 2, and 4 should follow a particular rhyme? So what scheme I'm following, what language I'm using? Similarly, in Japanese have developed this. I did not mention Hindi here because lots of us are already familiar with that. In English, I did not put. So tanka, haiku, and different forms of Japanese poetry. And I experimented with some of them. I'll give you some examples of what I wrote. I wrote some Urdu haikus some time ago. But one thought about rhyming and meter and these prosodies and these rules that are enforced in form of a structure of poetry is is rhyme a curse because it forces your thinking? Is our rhyme ahead of us or our thought is ahead? Sometimes rhyme forces us to think in a way which we are not planning. So many poets would just try to fit the rhyme, and in the process of fitting in the rhyme, they will lose the thought. I've collected here a small 3 lines from a song. हम तेरे बिन कहीं जी नहीं पाते, तेरे बिना क्या वजूद मेरा, क्योंकि तुम ही हो. Now these 3 lines have 3 mistakes. So hum is using for first person hum. This is one usage. And the second line says mera. So hum and mera are grammatically inconsistent. And hum tum is the correct usage. Hum tera is not, hum and tu is not the correct usage. Hum tere bin reh nahi paate. So this is, grammatically, this is why this is there. It is not that the poet does not know Hindi. It is not that the poet cannot write correct language. It is because of the curse of rhyme. Because he has to force his language. He has to force his song to fit into the music for which he is writing this song. So this is, I call the curse of rhyme, which can sometimes distort our thoughts, can kill our idea, can in fact totally, at the end of the line, we might say totally different from what we originally intended to do. And that's why people have started with blank verse and free verse, where the thought becomes more free from these metric restrictions. So I tried to do some Hajj haiku. The Japanese say that what we usually people write is not haiku, but there is something else. So this is the loose definition of haiku that I've used is a 3-line poem. And a lot of people have tried to write haikus in other languages, including English. I wrote some when I saw people performing Hajj. And this is trying to refer to their experiences of Hajj. So usually 3-line poem is sufficient for a haiku, but there's a combination of haiku. I share this with them. So for instance, the first 3 lines say, Mehve tabassum, diwano par, hajre aswad. This is usual meter of a haiku. So 3 lines, Mehve tabassum, diwano par, hajre aswad. So this refers to an experience when the people who pray and they roll around the Kaaba, they are trying to kiss a stone which is called Hajr Aswad, and there is so much of frenzy in trying to kiss that stone that I say that the Hajr Aswad itself is smiling on the frenzy of these people. So Mehve tabassum divano par Hajr Aswad. Then another experience. So this is second 3 lines. Another haiku. This experience relates how right at the back of Kaaba, people are not begging God. People are begging other human beings. Humans are actually begging from humans. So this thought has been expressed in this haiku that says, Insano se, mange insan, pushte Kaaba. Right at the back of Kaaba, when God's home is there, they are not asking God, they are asking other human beings, they are begging there. So Insano se, mange insan, pushte Kaaba. Then there is another ritual in Hajj, which is when the people go and throw pebbles on a wall, which is considered to be the wall of Satan. So it says, Shaitano par barse kankar. So people go and take some small pebbles, they throw on the wall. The idea is that people are killing their own, sinful desires, or nafs as they call it. So this is what has been described as Shaitano par barse kankar, pak tashaddud. It's a holy violence. So this can be one perspective to look at it. It is violent after all. Then last one, that although in that when we go to pray and in many other places we dress up the same way, like school uniform, everybody is dressed up the same way. And then this is what is called ham poshaki. That means everybody is dressed the same way. Ham poshaki, dilkash manzar. It is so beautiful to see that everybody is dressed in the white. Everybody, but dil poshida. Nobody knows about the heart. It is only the body, only the clothes that we are wearing become common. But does the heart also become common to everybody? We don't know. So this is the experience of haiku. So this is why I mentioned here is that haiku is a very special structure. It is not very popular in Urdu or Hindi poetry. This is a structure which is dictated by the standardization of poetry in this meter with this length, these many syllables, and the poetry has to. This has been documented, and this has been what is when will form the foundation of the grammar of poetry, ultimately, or the versification of language. as we might call it. So this is another one, just because Dr. Bagler asked me to share some of my poetry, I have taken liberty with adding one of my other ghazals here. So this is not really ghazal, this is nazm, because ghazal should have rhyme at every alternative pair of lines. So this is more liberated from that meter. So it says, जैसे सहरा में समंदर की डगर मिल जाए, रेगजारों में कोई खोया हुआ घर मिल जाए, जैसे बन जाए यही तारीकी फ़कत क़ैद नज़र, जैसे एक रात में लिपटी हुई आ जाए सहर, खिलवते जामे उभर आया कोई भूला हुआ साज, तायरे आरज़ू फिर भरने लगा जैसे परवाज़, गुल बने शजर बने या कि कोई बाग बने, देखिए रंगे तमन्ना न नया दाग बने. So this is, I again put it here to show how the poetry takes different forms, and in the end I've tried to put AI into my poems. I'm trying to compile a book called Data Science Poems, and I've taken one extract from there. And this is more about people who understand computer science students, they will understand this poem very well. So there was a guy who thought he's a hero. He believed he could divide 0 by 0 and subtract infinity from infinity with an unchallenged immunity. Feeling entitled in his solution, he placed himself in a strange situation, sitting alone on his love's imaginary table. All his courtships became not available. So with this sampling of poem, because I was supposed to be bridging between the AI and the poetry, so I have taken more of the poetry side in my presentation. In the end, I will just say that poetry AI are basically an arzu of a humanless poet, and for that I have quoted not this is the only line in my presentation which is not from my poetry. ये आरज़ू भी बड़ी चीज़ है मगर हमदम विसाल यार फ़कत आरज़ू की बात नहीं, because poetry is much more than wordplay. Thank you.